Ciao a tutti, it's Aram, and today we are going to be talking about every competitive deck in that format, how to build them, how to play them, how to counter them, what you should know about the decks, kind of like a beginner breakdown, if you will. These are the decks I will be covering: Mermails, Artifact Trap Tricks, Spellbooks, Geargias, Mythic Rulers, Bujins, Infernities, Hieratic Rulers, Constellar, Madolche, Evilswarm, and Sylvans. Everything else I think is rogue. So yeah, that's just all I will be covering here today, probably for all time. So yeah, I'm going to be starting off with Mermails. I'm gonna be going in how good I think the deck is, from best to worst. We're gonna be starting off with Mermails, which by most people's standards is the best deck of the format, so it's not very controversial opinion amongst the players. If you are new to the format and are kind of confused about that, yeah, Mermails kind of took over. But Mermails are an aggro deck. They often start out quite slow with just normal summon Pike, normal summon Undyne, activate Abyss Sphere, activate Lyn, those kinds of effects, but they do get a lot of advantage, and they do pop a lot of stuff, and with that they can just bring out Bismagala and clean, do a lot of damage with that. So that's kind of why they're aggro. The deck has is quite heavily countered by Graveyard Hate, so Macrocosmos, the Fisher, Soul Drain, DD Crow, the Bank, Schoolmeister, all that stuff. Keep in mind that Schoolmeister negates Beastland. Another good siding for the deck is back row removal. MST is good. Do keep in mind that versus this deck you never blind MST unless they just set all of their back rows, and even in that case, like, I wouldn't take the risk of not hitting the sphere because they always have sphere. Yeah, pretty much if you blind MST into sphere and they can chain it, you have lost. But if you chain MST to sphere, you are in quite a great position. So MST is a great setting versus the deck. Besides that, Night Beam is also great because they cannot chain their Abyss Sphere to it. It just pops it cleanly unless they have like Phoenix Wing Beam Blast or something to break through skill. Because like they cannot chain the card itself, but they can chain something else and then the targeted card. So Night Beam is kind of decent for that. Though like generally just MST is better. Besides that, there's a very funny thing that you can do, which is Trap Stun. Because under North American rulings, Trap Stun, Abyss Sphere's effect, Abyss Sphere, the strength itself, is an effect and not a maintenance cost. Which means that if you Trap Stun them, Abyss Sphere says that while you control this face-up card, you cannot activate spells. So and there's no way for itself to get pop later on. So you are pretty much permanently shutting off their soul charge. Obviously, they don't run a lot of spells usually, so it's just really soul charge that you're shutting off. But hey, it's still the best card in the format and one of the best cards in the deck. Because yeah, this deck can take quite a bit of advantage of soul charge. Often it's done late game, but they can just use it early game and on Bisgaios, Bahamut Shark, and Bistrite. They can end on Ragnar Zero if they run it, Abysswaller in the mirror match. They can. They often end into Equipped Engineer. That's really important. They can end on Leo, which is really hard for decks like Geargias to get rid of. Yeah, the extra deck is pretty staple, really. Like slots, Abyss Gaios, Dracosac, Big Eye, 101, Exit on Dweller, Lavallo Chain, Alucard, Levier, Engineer, Leo, and Black Rose are pretty much mandatory. Black Rose or Gagnir, or both. Besides that, you have some options in Rhapsody, Second Leo, Ragna Zero, which is pretty good in my opinion right now, because Farfist is a pretty bad matchup, and it's gaining a bit of steam, so Ragna Zero helps a lot with that. But yeah, speaking of bad matchups, Spellbooks are pretty bad because popping their stuff is not that strong. Besides that, there's also Bujins, because they have a lot of protection from your pops, and also Mythic Rulers, because the Mermails have a decent advantage and grind game, but nothing extraordinary like Mythic Rulers do. So they just get outgrinded by Mythic Rulers, really. Besides that, they have an amazing Geargia matchup, and 50-50 Artifact Trap Tricks matchup. Most of them are. The rest are good matchups, not incredible, but like the deck is very consistent to the point that where you can run more than 40 cards and be totally fine. Actually, there's probably a good reason for that. Controller. People go back and forth with the ratios of Undyne and Controller. I don't know which is the best, really. Some people play 2 and 2, some people play 3 and 2, and some people play 3 and 3. Usually, if you go over 30, you just play 3 controllers, though. So, yeah. Besides that, ratios. Megalo is a 1 or 2 off Turge. You can cut both the Atlantean poppers. You can cut a copy of salvages and mandatory. Traps are kind of to personal preference. The only staples are like the Abyss Spheres, some amount of Breakthrough Skill for dealing with Dweller, and Torrential Tribute. Speaking of Dweller, yeah, the deck is also weak to rank 4 strategies, because they can just end on Dweller, and yeah, Dweller kind of kills the deck, because it's a graveyard hate that every deck can, a lot of decks can just get into even game 1, so you kind of have to be aware of that. Always have a breakthrough skills ready for that. So yeah, there's that's all I have to say really about Mermails, I think. Moving on to Artifact Trap Tricks, I won't be talking too in depth about Artifact Trap Tricks, because I already made a 35-minute video that you should totally check out. Yeah, I'm also going to be talking about Cat and Hat. Oh, also there's the Nimble Mermail variant. It's cute. It's also pretty good. It's in the top 12. Like it's among the top 12 in terms of rankings, but I'm not gonna be covering this video also because nobody really runs it anymore. So next up, we have Artifact Trap Tricks. The main variant that people play nowadays is Cat with Card, because it's the best. But Hat is also still viable. Other variants like mill-based variants and Firefists are kind of okay, but not in the top 12. But yeah, basically it's a control aggro deck, which means that you still play quite a bit of traps. You want to stop the opponent, but you don't have enough resource game to want to go into a grind game with a lot of decks. So you are trying to kill them kind of quickly. Artifact combo is 3500 damage. Then you make play these. Then hopefully you can win in a couple of turns after that. But yeah, Artifact combo is just like Ignition plus Beagle or Moral, preferably Beagle, or Sanctum plus Moral, or Double Cyclone plus other stuff. But pretty much just you try to get to rank 5. Not just Moral Attack Resolving is good. You do want to after game 1 you sometimes want to avoid going into big attack, because one of the best settings for the deck is DD Crow and also Aleph Justice Cycle Reader. Pretty much graveyard hit, but not as much floodgates, just individual back row hit. Graveyard hit is good versus at. So DD Crow, Cycle Reader, Schoolmeister to a lesser extent. Freaking Transmigration, Prophecy, Debunk are all good versus the deck. Besides that, also back row hate is good. Just like with Mermails, you don't want to blind MST versus the deck, because they might have artifacts, and even on your turn, on your end phase, it might be on their end phase. Sorry, it might not be the best idea, because if you hit Ignition, it might be very, very bad. Sometimes even Sanctum. But you just gotta judge for yourself depending on the situation. Catalysts are pretty standardized. The extra deck is also very standardized. The only real flex spot is like the last 2 slots. You want to play Ragnar Zero, Heartland Draco, and Giant Hand, and you got choose 2 of these. But yeah. In terms of matchup, the deck has a very bad Geargia matchup, and Cat specifically also has a bad Evilswarm matchup. Hat and Fat not so much, because they can auto Ophion a lot easier, but Evilswarms, if they go first and they can make Ophion, you can't really play much versus Ophion, so you gotta stop them before it's too late. Besides that, the deck doesn't have really bad matchups. It has a very strong Spellbook matchup too, and yeah, like kind of why people are playing it a bit less is because breaking on artifacts is annoying, because sometimes you can just break on these guys and without any way to pop them, and that sucks. So yeah, but, yeah. Side wiretaps and crows and such. Maxi is okay versus the deck, but like depending on what you have, you probably want to side it out. At least 1 or 2 copies. 1 or 2 copies left after game 1 is fine generally, but like 3 is pretty bad versus the deck. So yeah. Next up we have Spellbook, who, despite the multiple hits on the ban list, is still one of the top decks of the format somehow. At least until it faces artifacts, because the deck auto loses to artifacts pretty much. Yeah, the deck is a ramp deck. You gain a lot of advantage with tower, and you do get quite you get the best interruption. You get the best interrupt in the format. You have Fate, which means that versus decks that only have really 1 normal summon per turn, it's amazing. Versus deck that extend, like combo decks, it's not so good, because you usually only have 1 or maybe 2 interruptions, maybe 3 if you're lucky, but like generally don't have enough interruptions to stop combo decks really. So that's also the other bad matchup of the deck, combo decks. Besides that, the deck is very good versus like other ramp decks. Any deck that relies on protection, like Bujin's, any Mermail is also good, a good matchup. But yeah, Tower is kind of one of the most important cards in the deck, so stuff to look out for in the side deck is that wasn't supposed to be there. The biggest weakness of the deck in terms of the side deck is DNA Transplant and Imperial Iron Wall. Mainly DNA Transplant, because it turns off both. It turns off Fate. Imperial Iron Wall. Okay, so both Imperial Iron Wall and DNA Transplant turn off Fate. DNA Transplant in the early games also stops tower, but that's not permanent. And besides that, there's also Zombie World. If your deck can take advantage of the one turn that you get to hold the tower back and not give them fate, then Zombie World is great. But it's really deck dependent. Besides that, the deck also dies to decks that make Natura Beast, obviously, because the deck is basically a combo deck that combos with spells instead of traps, monsters. But yeah, one of the biggest strengths of the deck is that a lot of cards are dead versus the deck. So like Maxi is dead, Torrential is dead, Bottomless is dead, Compulse is dead. Solemn is fine. Solemn is actually good. Breakthrough Skill is only good if they don't have Wisdom. So kind of iffy on that. Hands are dead. Trap Trickses in general all are dead. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's just dead versus the deck. Which means that when you are siding in stuff, you are more focused on what you want to side out than what you want to side in. Which is why DD Crow is something that you will use where you side in, because you usually have more side outs than side ins. And DD Crow is okay versus the deck. Stops Master, which sometimes is good enough. Sometimes it stops Tower, but that's not. That feels kind of like a waste, but yeah, that comes up too. The deck also really doesn't rely on the extra deck at all. It's a deck that cares about the extra deck the least. Kind of a weakness of the deck is that you cannot take advantage of Soul Charge, the best card in the format, so that sucks, but hey, still one of the best decks of the format, so how much can I really complain? Macrocosmos is also annoying versus for the deck because it banishes all your spells, Another one of the deck's biggest strengths is consistency, even if when it does break, it breaks harder than any other deck, really. It can't really do anything. But speaking of consistency and also ramp decks, we have Geargias, which is the other big ramp deck of the format. It's a lot more aggressive comparatively. At least it takes a lot less to get into aggressive stuff, but you are kind of relying on Geargia armor to get you through the early game, which is very exploitable by Mermails. And in the side deck, Nobleman of Crossout is really good because of this deck. There's also Mind Control and Darkhold, those are good. And for Trap Tricks decks, you probably want to side the Acid Trapple. It does flip the armor face up, but that's running over armor by battle, like what Acid Golem basically does, is still better than letting it live. They don't get near as much advantage of if they don't still have the Geargia on the field, especially if they're playing the Karakuri build, which we're not really gonna be talking about today. But yeah, the deck has those are the main side-ins, that and Blackhorn of Heaven and Backrow Hate. Blackhorn of Heaven because it stops Q Gigantex very cleanly. It doesn't float anymore. Also, Solemn Warning and Trap-Tricks Trapple Nightmare are a problem for Gigantex, but Trap-Tricks Trapple Nightmare you can play around. You probably want to main deck the hands and DD Crow because Mermail is your worst matchup, is your second worst matchup, and the deck is very common, so it's really important. The worst matchup is Spellbooks because they just beat you as a ramp deck, and Fate outs armor very cleanly, so there's that. And their spellbooks are also a bit more consistent. Like, Geargias are a pretty consistent deck overall, so it's not really the biggest issue. Besides that, the deck can side deck floodgates a lot. It isn't really affected a lot by floodgates besides like Vanity, Skill Drain, and Ravelry. Ravelry is an issue because you can't really out it unless you draw the MST or the hands. Not really the hands. The MST, because like you're locked into pretty much just Gigantex and Zenmayo. Those are your only machines really. So like you have to rely on Zenmayo to out the Rivalry, so that's why it's annoying. Besides that, the extra deck is kind of tight. There's like Ragnar Zero, Demon Wolf, and Acid Golem here are kind of like spots. You can play Daigusto Emerald or was it Harden Draco? Forgot. Crazy Box, right? Crazy Box. Because otherwise you often just die to Skill Drain without the hands or MST. The deck has a really solid cat matchup. Besides that, it's very weak to Spellbooks and Mermails. It's also not the best versus combo decks, but it's manageable. You're maining a lot of traps and hand traps, so it's usually fine. It's not as bad as it looks on paper. Same with like Fire Fist and such. Not as bad as it looks on paper because you have a lot of traps to stop them. Yeah. You could also side in System Down, I guess. Most decks, that's not really an issue, but Geargia's Soul Charge is really frustrating to play against, so System Down shuts that down. Cyber Dragon is also technically an option, but no, just if you main deck Cyber Dragon because you're playing Cyber Dragons, that's good. Otherwise, just side in Nobleman of Crossout, Mind Control, Darkhold, Wiretap, the Bank. Sorry, not the Bank, Blackhorn. That stuff. Also, Mind Control in the Geargia matchup is fucking broken. Holy shit. But yeah, something you have to keep in mind when deck building is if you are main decking DD Crow, you need at least 6 side-ins versus Geargias, because Maxi and DD Crow are stuff you definitely want to side out versus the deck. Kind of the main weakness of maining DD Crow is that you have a worst Geargia matchup if you do, pretty much. Next off, we have Mythic Rulers, which looks like a combo deck to any newcomer. Then they try to play it like a combo deck and they fail miserably and they think the deck is trash. And it's a mid-range deck. Basically, you get a lot of resources just from the Dragon Rulers existing. So it's kind of the mid-range aspect of it. It has a combo edge, it can do big soul charge turns and on file grunts and such, but it's not its main focus and should not be played as such. Well, its main strength is like it has infinite grind game and it can do pretty much anything that it wants. Ignore the little blemish on that card. It can do pretty much anything it wants at any time, which is also why it's by far the hardest deck to play in the format correctly, because you can do pretty much anything it wants at any point in time. So yeah, it is quite easy to counter in the side deck though. Maxi is very strong obviously, but DD Crow really fucks it over. Because like if you chain it to Dragon Ruler summoning itself, they just went -3. Because all of their dragons in the graveyard are resources, they are pretty much going -3. Besides that, Graveyard Hate also really hits this Imperial Armor Wall. And if you really fear this matchup, Zombie World completely solos it. I'm not kidding. Dragons really cannot do anything versus Zombie World. They have to go literally -2 to summon a Dragon Ruler now. You know, they can still sometimes win with just skill drain, because skill drain is still skill drain even in 2014. But besides that, the deck really auto loses to Zombie World. But yeah, the deck can run pretty much all of the best floodgates. Skill drain, best floodgate in the format it can run. Vanities, it can run it. Doesn't usually, but you could. Rivalry is fine. You could use it if you want to. Not personally a big fan, but it's decent medical. But you already have a good Mermail matchup because you already outgrind them. Yeah. Speaking about matchups, honestly, I am not entirely sure what the bad matchups are supposed to be. The deck just has consistency issues, but like I don't see any matchup as being particularly bad. Because the Dragon Rulers are still broken. You cannot grind anything. You can outbeat anything. You have skill drain, which hinders a lot of decks very much. Keep in mind that if the opponent drops Crazy Box on you, you do have an out in Dracosack, and you are probably running more Dracosacks than they are running Crazy Box in pretty much any deck. Yeah. That's all I have to say. I guess the deck is also kind of annoyed by the hands because, it pops their floodgates. But, hands, MSTs are also good side-ins if you don't have enough Graveyard Hate, like Crow, the Bank, Schoolmeister, I guess. It's fine. To a lesser extent, Soul Drain, Macrocosmos, Defisher, Imperial Armor, Zombie World. All of those are great settings versus the deck. It's just keep in mind that it's a very hard deck to play, and I would never recommend it to a beginner to pick up. It's fine to pick up and play, just don't expect to do any good with it, because it's really hard to play. Next up, we have the extra power special, Bujins. God knows how much the deck has changed since then, thanks to him. It's a protect the castle control deck, I guess. Basically just normal summon Yamato and protect him, and yeah. But besides that, you have Susanoo, which is a very big monster that can aggro out a lot. And Hirume is kind of annoying to deal with. But yeah, kind of. Okay, so one of the deck's strengths is it's very strong versus Mermails, and it's also pretty decent versus Geargias. It's a fine matchup. It is weak to artifacts. It does auto lose to Spellbooks and also Madolches, and it has a bit of an issue with floodgates and in general side deck cards, because even if you don't side anything specifically for Bujis, your opponent will have stuff for you inadvertently, because there's so many good side-ins versus the deck, and you also have 3 maxis, which are super easy side-outs, which, okay, a strength of the deck is that if the opponent means maxi, it's dead, but now they have a lot more room to side into a lot of stuff. So starting off with DD Crow and a layer of just this Cycle Reader, they can be a bit hard to use, but You're totally good. The Monkey is great because it also stops your hand traps. So, you know, Crane, Honest. Schoolmaster is fine, I guess, too, because you can use it in damage step, just like Turtle. Then there's, you know, what's the name? Soul Drain, Macrocosmos, D-Fisher. All of those cards are all good versus the deck. MST is decent to hit tanky, and Kaiser Colosseum if the Bujin player, if you play it. Light Imprisoning Mirror, this is a light deck, shuts it down. Imperial Iron Wall, this is a vanish deck. You shut down the opponent's protection. You shut down the Bujin's protection. DNA Transplant and Zombie World, you change the Beast Warriors to another type, and now all of the non-Beast Warrior Bujins do nothing. You know, there's a lot of stuff that is very strong in the side deck against Bujins, which definitely does hinder the deck quite a lot. But yeah, like a strength of the deck is that it's very strong game one because you know, the opponent is probably mainly max CS and the card is very dead versus the deck. But yeah, besides that, it's a bit rough after that. But the deck, you know, has a very solid Mermail matchup, so it can take advantage of that. It's a good deck. The extra deck is like, you have just 3 Susanovas, and that's kind of the most important part. These guys you can make with Bujin Carnation. Also, Fireface Tiger King you can make with Bujin Carnation. And the others are just like, sometimes they come up if you like, mainly if you don't open Yamato. That's a bit of an issue with the deck, is like, you play 3 tanky, 3 Yamato, 3 duality, 3 upstart, 3 maxi, 2 dig into Yamato, but if you don't see it, you just don't do anything with the deck. So yeah, you kinda just lose if that happens. But, well, that's Yu-Gi-Oh for you. Yeah, that's Bujins for you. The extra power special. Brought up sweet Bujis and Max IK stuff shit. Now we have Infernities, which what a fall from grace. I think part of why the deck doesn't perform nearly as well as it used to is because Dwelling Book is not conducive to the gameplay plan of setting your hand, where setting your hand is something that the opponent cannot check. Let's just say that. Yeah, Infernity is one of those decks where it's very easy to cheat in real life with. Honestly encouraged, but you can't really do that online. So yeah, it's a lot harder to top with the deck online. It's a lot less consistent without setting your monsters. But yeah, the deck is a combo deck. I think everyone knows this. It's the deck that everyone hates to face in the format, really. No one likes facing Infernities. It's so boring. Now, another reason why it's seeing a lot less success lately is because, well, everyone and their mother is main decking Maxi. Everyone and their mother is side decking Diddy Crow, but, you know, because of that, because Infernity are now less popular because of that, Flanksy is not very common in the side deck, which is great for this deck. Because, you know, Flanksy's main use is versus Infinities. Now, obviously, Infinities can counter it with, like, Chalice or a Tuner, but, yeah, no, it's just not really anyone is playing it. So, versus most people, the most hand traps you're going to be facing is 6 or maybe like 8 if they are siding Schoolmeister. That's about it. So that's silver lining there, I guess. Yeah. Besides that, you know, the next matchups, when you go first, you generally win versus pretty much everything. um, when you go second, you know you are just trying to get exit on off and win from there, and it's kind of hard. So you know, kind of depends whether you win or not. But yeah, in terms of specific matchups, it's a combo deck, so it does overwhelm spellbooks, especially if you main Lance over like Trapstun. The spellbooks can't really deal with all that spamming. But it does have a really bad Geargia matchup, and that's because Geargia's usually, often main deck DD Crows. Geargia's going second. They have way more traps that stop exit on night than the average deck. So like sometimes 2 Exiton isn't even enough. Sometimes you need 3 Exiton versus Geargias. And unlike all the other combo decks that just have the advantage of having a lot of big monsters that can just beat over Geargia armor, Infernities cannot do that. They need Palabyrinth to get big. So yeah, that's rough. That's rough for the deck. But besides that, the matchups are really 50-50 unless the opponent is maining hand traps. So I guess like even Madolche is a pretty poor matchup because they often main DD Crow. At least I often main DD Crow when I'm playing the deck. I don't know about you. Good sidings, hand traps obviously. MST, especially if you're playing IRL. Blind MST, the cards you don't know the opponent has set. Watch them scoop. Watch them scoop from that. No, yeah. MST is fine. Dark Hole and Mind Controller can be fine to bait out negates. The end all be all card versus the deck is Spiritualism, which has been ruled to not target in the format, at least in by North American rulings. The reason it targeted in Worlds is because in OCG it does target, but in North America it doesn't. So yeah, you just activate Spiritualism. They can't really do anything. You bounce the barrier, and now all of their Infernity back rows are stuck. And yeah, they have 0 negates from after that. So Spiritualism is the best siding, but siding one card for just Infernities when Infernities isn't even the biggest concern. I don't know. It's not seem like a great idea to me, frankly. Yeah, pretty much all hand traps are good besides Cycle Reader. Just gotta time them well. Besides Maxi, all the other hand traps you need to know when to use, which can be hard. I felt that quite a few times, honestly. Yeah. That's Infinities for you. A fucking cancer of a deck. Really fun to play Solitaire with though. And if you have an opponent, if you win the die roll, it's still fucking Solitaire. If not, you just summon Exiton. And if that doesn't work, summon another Exiton. And if that doesn't work, well, maybe you could summon a third Exiton if you run it, but probably not, so you just scoop. Now we have Hieratic Ruler, deck I quite like. Out of all the decks in this video, this is probably the least consistent of them all. However, unlike the other combo decks, it's a lot better at going second because you can very easily OTK and push through boards. But yeah, kinda what you want is to see multiple Hieratics. If you're going first, these guys, Neftet plus Su. If you're going second, then kinda any of these plus Su. If you see multiple Sus, you're probably winning that. But yeah, you make rank 6s, you make level 7s and 8s synchros, and even level 11, the one running vanillas. Yeah. Okay, so what's the deck's weaknesses? Well, what kills combo decks and what kills rulers, but not as much as Mythic Rulers, because like The floodgates that most floodgates that hit Dragon Rulers don't really hit the Hieratics themselves, besides like Soul Drain and Macro and Diffusor. But like Imperial Iron Wall, don't care. But yeah, there's still an issue because like you can't really do much with your without your Dragon Rulers, but you can still somewhat play. You can still make Black Rose. That's good. I mean, even without having access to the rest of your without access to the Dragon Rulers, you have Black Rose access with the Flamvel Guard, so that's good. Besides that, yeah, obviously it's weak to DD Crow, not as much as Mythic Rulers, but still weak. Weak to Maxi, but it's Definite and Su both don't. They are inherent special summons, so you can't chain Maxi to them. You have to chain to either you blind Maxi, you shotgun it, or you just chain it to the activation of the Hieratic that got tributed. So yeah. Also thanks to Su and Nefthet's other effects, you can unclog stuff going second. So that's another reason why this deck is a lot better than other combo decks at going second. But, yeah, there are some builds that play more traps, but I feel like just the 3 skill drain is all you need in this deck to compete. Bad matchups. Bullshit, I forgot to order the extra. Sorry. Geargias are kind of weird because you can just run over armor, but they often just made deck DD Crow, so that's really annoying. And they also have the hands to out Skill Drain, but without Skill Drain, you don't have any other stuff they can pop with Ice Hand to make it live, so there's that. Besides that, artifacts are annoying, but play this is not really annoying and just play around it quite well. It's it's a little bit weaker than other combo decks to Spellbooks because it's not normal summon reliant, it's still taking away one of your combo pieces, which unless you open a lot of is going to be an issue. Besides that, like, it's a combo deck, kinda just wins or loses based on its luck, not the opponent and what he's playing. So yeah, there's that. Besides that, it's a Dragon Ruler deck, so it has a good Mermail matchup because the Dragon Rulers outgrind them. Now we have my favorite deck in the format, Constellars. I love this deck. It's simple. It's a mid-range deck. It's the most mid-range deck of the format. This is my newest list. It's a bit more unconventional, but it's kind of built in mind that Constellars are mostly just worse artifact trap tricks, except it's a lot faster. You can get play this turn 1 or turn 2 if you go second, which you cannot do with Cat and such. And yeah, it's a bit rough, but for the most part, the matchups are kinda the same matchup spread. The only real big difference is that like the Cat matchup is very bad. Which is also kind of why I'm maining 3 DD Crows, partly. But the Mermail matchup is a bit worse. The Geargia matchup is definitely a lot better. The Spellbook matchup is still very, very good. Mythic Rulers, you're probably maybe a bit better Maybe not. I don't play bottomless, and you don't have Mermail, which I mean you could, but it's like it's kind of whatever, you know. It's like this deck already has good normal summons. The thing is that you got to draw them. You got to draw the combo, which is also why I'm only running 7 Constellars plus 4 search cards. It's kind of my take on it, my current take on it. But you know, if you want a more conventional list, I profiled it a long time ago, and that list is still good, except you need to add maxes. How do you counter Constellars? The same way you counter Artifact Trap Tricks, really. Yeah, there is a very easy side out in Maxi. Maxi is really not that good versus this deck because, like, especially my build, because these guys don't special summon. You only special summon the XYZ, so you only get to draw 1 unless you get an Algeri. Also, Sombre doesn't special summon, so you either draw 1, draw 2 if you have Algeri, or you know, draw off artifacts, but that's not really ideal, you know. And yeah, so artifact hate, breakthrough skill, light imprisoning mirror are all good settings versus this deck. This deck does have a really good Bujin matchup, but I mean, artifacts already do. This deck does have, this deck has a really good matchup versus anything that is very normal summon reliant, like Madolche is. It's also very good versus Infernity because if you bounce a card at the right timing with play this, well, they have a card in hand they cannot play. So it's really, really good versus those decks, better than at. Well, say it's exactly better than at versus normal summon reliant decks because it's already very good. It's just not a consistent deck is the issue, really, compared to Artifact Trap Tricks and especially Cat. Just kind of why I'm playing 3 Maxi, 3 Upstart, minimizing on the Constellars because they only do stuff in pairs, and if you draw them alone, they suck, and unless you draw these guys or Algeri plus Chaos, it's not that strong. Like a rank 4 is fine sometimes, but usually you just want a rank 5 unless you're playing versus Mermail. Versus Mermail, it's kind of better to have a 4 because Dweller does a lot more than play this versus Mermail because you know, they can just out it with normal summon Undyne, they can extend, so it's not a normal summon reliant deck at all. So, you know, it has a bit of a rough Mermail matchup, but nothing unwinnable, just gotta draw good enough, I guess. Now we have Madolches. This is my homebrew list because I don't like none of the lists that topped, and that's also why I don't have a Madolche deck profile up yet. You know, I think it's the least optimized deck in the format, but yeah, it's a mid-range deck. It has some aggro because it can do a lot of damage in a turn. Plus, Tiramisu is the best removal in the format. It is also a bit of a ramp deck because if they don't address your continuous spells, your field, your shadow, and your ticket, you are going to end up with a handful of Madolches, which you can't really do anything with without Palooza. But yeah, a lot of stuff. The deck is very versatile. You can run pretty much any engine you want to run in it, any tech you can run it. It's like it is the most. It is the least solved deck of the format because it's also the most versatile deck of the format. You can run pretty much anything in this, and it will kind of work. Weaknesses: for being a mid-range deck, this deck is very weak to hand traps. Because Angeli is 2 special summons, 1, and then you summon Hoodcake, and then you're probably better off still special summoning with it and getting the search of Messengerato. And also, Crow is very deadly because Hoodcake vanishes for effect, not for cost. Which means that if they Crow the target, Hoodcake fizzles, and then you have no Hoodcake effect. So yeah. Deck also sucks against Valor, but Valor sucks, so that's fine. You know, besides that, it's also very normal summon reliant, at least early game, early to mid game. Until you have Palooza set up, then you are fine. But early to mid game, you're very weak to your normal summon getting negated. So like artifacts and Constellars are a very bad matchup because of that. In general, any deck that really hits the normal summon is gonna be a bit tough. In terms of good matchups, it's kind of hard to say because you can run pretty much anything in here. I think running a lot of entraps is good, and that makes this particular build great versus combo decks, especially Dragon Rulers, because like you have the 3 Crows, 3 Max, the hands. It's like you got everything. Traps are these traps are kind of that versus Mythic Rulers. You know, you can run pretty much anything against whatever you fear, but still you're gonna have some poor matchups versus artifacts, Constellars, Spellbooks too, because they have Fate. Skill drain can be annoying. Well, that can be said about a lot of decks. Geargias are kind of fine. Their monsters are fine. It's their back rows that's a problem, but you have trap stun, and yeah, that's kind of how you address it. Trap stun, wire tap, MST, back row hate for Geargias, but yeah. Like their monsters, you can run over their stuff with castle and chateau. Chateau. It's called fucking castle in Italian, not as classy. But yeah. Versus Mermails, it's like okay. The main issue is that you can't really get the floodgates. And also an issue with the deck is that you can run Soul Charge. It's just going to be hard to use it properly because the Madolches shuffle themselves back. So it's kind of hard to use it. Yeah. Yeah. Madolches are kind of not my expertise really. I've played them a bit, but I can't figure out a solved list for the life of me. Sorry about that. We are at Evilswarms. We're almost done with this. It's been like a week since we started, and I just realized that you're probably going to see me go through all of my hoodies. In this recording. Anyways, Evilswarms, it's a matchup fish deck. That's kind of it. It's not very consistent. Its matchup spread is very lopsided. If you want to steal an easy win from a cat player, play Evilswarms. If you win the dice roll and you open one of your plays into Ophion, you win. If not, you lose. And generally, Pandemic kinda carries the deck whenever you don't open the nuts, really. But and by the nuts I mean Castor or Rabbit, because we don't have unexpected die in the format. Evilswarms would be so much better if we had unexpected die in the format. But yeah, like this, it's so inconsistent. It's so matchup fishy. It's also obviously good versus Dragon Ruler decks. It's okay versus Mermails. Can sometimes be kind of awkward, but like usually it's fine. They just have Undyne. They can just normal summon Undyne, send Infantry, pop Ophion. Who cares? It's also kind of why you want Schoolmeister, because a lot of the stuff that outs Ophion does it in the graveyard. So stuff like the hands, Infantry, and Marksman is a fine hit too sometimes. Those kinds of stuff outs Ophion. Besides that, it's also level 4, so it's okay. It can be decent with Mandragora, I guess. This deck is kind of carried by late game Kalkion. Other good matchups the deck has, Geargia Karakuri is fine, I guess. Spellbooks does not seem like the worst matchup ever, I guess. Like, if you can aggro them out early, you have Pandemic to deal with the Fate, I guess. But yeah, like, some matchups are just unwinnable, like Bujin's, Madolche's, anything that doesn't summon level 4s is probably easy fodder for. You're probably gonna be easy fodder for. It's also good against Sylvans, I guess. I forgot about Sylvans because they're the last deck up. Honestly, I'm not sure if Sylvans. Maybe Sylvans are better. Both of these decks are kind of garbage. Not gonna lie. Burly tier 2, but yeah. We also run a couple of rank 3s for XYZ Anchor because that really is the main counter to the deck besides the hands that you will side into. So having these is useful. Yeah. Like Snuffs is the biggest Evilswarm main. But he always says the deck is garbage. But he always says that about any deck he plays, really. So unless it's Firefist, yeah. Just if you wanna steal a win and maybe top, but it's gonna be unlikely, play Evilswarms. Just if you want to play the Reds, play Evilswarms. Really. I guess it can be kind of decent into Mermails because it's a rank 4 deck and you can make Dweller. I guess. Like, the deck can do stuff besides make Ophion. It's just a very much a uphill battle, unless the opponent brick. And you are a lot more likely to brick than whatever opponent you're facing, really. Finally, to round off this video, we have Sylvans, which fall in the category of worst Mythic Rulers with a lot of combo decks, even if Mythic Rulers aren't even a combo deck. Because like, okay, it's definitely more explosive than Mythic Ruler when it gets going, but it's a lot less consistent. Like you won't end on anything big unless you open Lone Fire plus Soul Charge. So that's a 2-card combo with a card that is semi-limited. So not the most likely of outcomes, but yeah, the deck is definitely very explosive when it does so, and a bit of a silver lining is that just standing on Hermitry is good enough versus control decks when you're going first, really. Sometimes, depends. Especially Geargias, but yeah, it's rough. It's rough. The deck has a lot of consistency issues. It's not very strong versus stuff like artifacts. It can be fine, but you have to play very well. It's very much outclassed by, again, Mythic Rulers. Mermails too, kinda, because like they also have their own kind of marksman and infantry, sorta. So you know they can pop stuff really, but yeah, you know. Besides deck, it's a combo deck. You know, it kind of goes by lack of who goes first, really. But if you just go normal summon Lonefire, you are actually weak to spellbooks because they can just banish it, and then what? What are you gonna do? Unless you open some very specific hands, not much. That's for sure. So there's that too. I guess it's fine. It's fine versus Bujins because of Aurea. They can just very easily out Yamato and then OTK if they didn't use Soul Charge that turn, which you know can be a little bit of a big if, but you know, giving it the benefit of the doubt here. Versus Evilswarms, you can probably find a way to pop Ophion with Martial Leaf every once in a while, I guess. But you need very specific hands, like you need a way to stack Martial Leaf and have normal summon the Princess Sprout to pop it. Or alternatively, you can do the opposite and normal summon Martial Leaf, summon the Princess Sprout, and make Zenmains. Which, oh wait, no, never mind. The deck doesn't even run Zenmains, so no, you can't even do that. Why would you? Yeah, you know, there are more control-oriented builds of the deck, but like I don't really see the upside compared to Mythic Rulers. You know, just playing worse Mythic Rulers, but like this time it's really just worse Mythic Rulers. I guess the strength of the deck is it can run rivalries of the Warlords quite effectively. You know, you won't end on anything big, but under rivalry they often aren't gonna be making much either. But yeah, it's kind of limiting because then your only extra deck access is this Sylvan stuff. And I guess some other niche stuff, but unless you're main deck in Rivalry of the Warlords, I wouldn't really bother with any of it. But yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed the series. The video. I hope you can forgive me for not uploading much these past few weeks. Life has been a bit hectic recently. So yeah, that's it from me. As always, I forget to say it at the beginning, I think. It's been a week since I recorded at the beginning, but leave a like, join the Discord, leave a comment, subscribe, ring the bell. All that good shit, and goodbye.